are Norscan Marauders, all variants, any good past 6.1.4. Besides the DLC announcement, I had planned this video for a while. Also, a lot of the factions you might be touching have to fight guys like this, and also you brave souls playing Norsca here and now for the first time need to know how they work to get the most out of them. Let's take a bold, bare-chested look at these cold warriors. Marauders, the basic ones, are recruited for 400 gold and 100 upkeep, truly conventional numbers. Keep in mind the rules for these units were first laid down 2 game versions ago. For that cost, you get 120 entities at 9,360 health, while armor is only 15, plus shields that block 35% of small arms fire. This total unit health is pretty robust. Leadership of 60 is not especially good or bad. Speed 35 and charge speed 43 are fairly nimble for their trouble. Melee attack begins at 34, and we'll come back to how that begins at that figure later. Attack interval of 4.2 seconds is slightly better than a lot in their range, but it's barely noticeable. There is no splash damage. Melee defense of 28 is below the bog standard Empire Swordsman, but is not horrendous. It's like greenskins, kinda. Weapon strength 28 is split between base 21 and armor piercing 7, and that's exactly standard per Empire Swordsman. Charge bonus of 18 is pretty good, and mass of 100 is very standard. Besides Hide and Forest, all we have here is the passive Rage. This effect increases with time, the unit manages to remain in melee combat and intact, and goes up to a maximum of plus 8 leadership, plus 5 melee attack, and 10% physical resistance. This is why Marauders seem like they stick around so much unless you get them off your troops with a crowbar, like a chariot or a wind spell. I didn't see a good reason to separate the variants, so let's soldier on through knee-high snow. Marauder Spearmen. For 150 gold recruit, 113 upkeep, no shields, same 15 armor, same 35 speed, melee attack begins at 25 with a shockingly slow 5.7 attack interval between stabby, like Empire Halberdiers. Having said that, melee defense is 37. Weapon strength of 25 is split between base 20 and armor piercing 5, with a bonus versus large of 15. Now, 15 isn't all that bad. It's equal to Empire Spearmen, the 200 gold unit, with slightly better melee defense and a fair bit better melee attack for a big gold difference. Charge bonus of 6 is still better than a lot of Spearmen, and mass is 100. This unit also has Rage, but sports charge defense versus large and charge reflection against such targets. The Great Weapons Marauders version is recruited for 475 gold and 119 upkeep. Everything, including lack of shields, is the same as the last unit until we get to melee attack 34 and attack interval 4.6. Melee defense 20 is shockingly low looking. That said, weapon strength of 30, split base 7, and armor piercing 23 makes this a credible cheap armor bashing unit. Let's think of them as the red-crested skinks of the roster. There is no bonus versus infantry, but charge bonus 22 is pretty fat, and mass is 100 again, very lean. Hide and Forest and Rage are once again present. Marauder Berserkers are a change in the formula. On Ultra you get 100 entities for 750 gold and 188 more per turn in upkeep, with 10,200 health between them. Armor is 15, leadership is a fatter 80. Speed 40 and charge speed 48 are significant improvements. Melee attack begins at 40, with attack interval of 4, no splash damage. Melee defense 24 is still better than great weapons. Weapon strength 52 is split between base 39 and armor piercing 13, which sounds like something you'd get out of black orcs with shields, and that's a compliment. You can barely believe they're still human with those figures. There is a relatively mild bonus versus infantry of 5. Charge bonus is an incredible 42. And mass is 180? Okay then. Berserkers have Hide and Forest, immunity to psychology, Frenzy, which means melee attack plus 10, charge bonus, and weapon strength plus 10% until damage breaks the morale quite a lot, a make the Berserkers berserkier kind of trait. And speaking of that, in prolonged melee Berserk, the trait will build until not only do they acquire a max of plus 20% physical resistance and plus 13 melee attack, but Rampage on top of that. Oh well, it's what you'd expect. Marauder Champions recruit for 1,000 gold and 250 upkeep. On Ultra you get 100 entities with 9,600 health between them. Armor is an almost shockingly high 80 with shields blocking a modest 35% of small arms fire. Leadership of 75 is quite solid. Would you believe, even at this level of armor, they move at the same 35 speed and 43 charge speed as the normal version? Melee attack 35 and attack interval 4 aren't exactly bad numbers. No splash damage. Thing is, melee defense of 53 is also quite shocking, really high. Weapon strength 46 is split base 32 and armor piercing 14, putting them in elite company for shielded armored troops. Charge bonus is 20 and mass is 160. This unit has Hide and Forest and Vanilla Rage. Oh wait, there's a Great Weapons version too! Recruited for 1100 gold and 275 upkeep. Still 80 armor, no shields. Melee attack still 35. Attack interval 4.3 is a little worse, rather than gigantically worse. Melee defense is 13 worse at 40. Weapon strength 50 is split base 15 and 35 armor piercing, almost as high as Berserkers before the Frenzy jacks that higher, but of course tilted heavily toward armor bashing. No bonus versus a type, charge bonus of 30 default, and mass 160. It has the usual rage trait and can hide in forest. Now we can move on. In the redline skills, Fearsome Warriors at 3 pips offers plus 8 melee attack and plus 12% weapon strength. Now, we might have expected this, but 42 attack for basic Marauders at rank 0 is shocking for a unit this cheap. The weapon strength is starting from a low position. At rank 7, all of these Marauders gain armor plus 12 flat, melee defense plus 5, and 10% physical resistance. The first two are notable for shoring up what starred as almost suicidal figures, champions aside. The last stacks with whatever they get from Rage, and that's quite important. The tech tree takes some explaining because a lot comes up. War Tools gives minus 10% to recruitment costs for all the aforementioned Marauders. Metalworkers Anvil adds plus 5 armor to all of them, so if you use a lot, it's a broad benefit. Blade Worker's Hammer adds plus 10% weapon strength, which gets more ridiculous the more you use the killier versions. Butcher's Captives adds a blanket plus 5 melee attack and plus 5 melee defense for all of them, and these are the backbone of your armies. Sea Marauder's Tools adds plus 5 to leadership, which can't hurt. Stronger Oars slows fatigue buildup, which is one of the key things dragging down your rage generation, aside from, death. Champions of War provides 10% more battle loot, and gives recruit rank plus 2 Marauder wide. If you get to Secrets of the Forest, you can give these infantry units. Strider. Raising of the Empire can give them upkeep minus 10%, Pillaging of the Lizardmen can give plus 10 leadership versus Lizardmen. Secrets of the Ancients slaps on 10% more physical resistance, which can get stupid high, and Demolition of the Chaos Dwarfs, guess you set fire to the wrong place, would grant Berserkers and Champions plus 15 armor. So it's a lot. It's an awful lot of potential. So how do we use the Norscan Marauders? What we must understand from going over these units is that their cost varies, their use varies, their level of eliteness varies, but all of them benefit from making physical contact with the enemy and grinding the enemy to bone dust. Effort spent getting them to survive whatever missile storm they must, with as many entities alive and fighting as possible, stands to get you excellent results. Effort spent speccing into them in the redline skills. And all of these 6 benefit from one set of skills. Juices up their offensive clout, even for the inherently defensive Spearmen and Champions, at least compared to the others. Now, what about weaknesses? Spearmen are a curveball, but broadly speaking, they are vulnerable to cavalry and chariots, they're vulnerable to single-entity monsters because low mass, and they're vulnerable to lots and lots of ranged and magic. Spearmen will get absolutely shredded by arrows, though high HP certainly helps. And if you're not shooting Berserkers, you're not playing right, or you're playing something with very few missile units and reliant on other tricks. In other words, for what you pay, Vanilla and Spearmen and Great Weapons can do their jobs just fine, and the more offensive you can use them, the better. The more expensive versions have their place, and Champions are kind of ridiculous for being that tough at that speed. They absolutely have weaknesses because while they're good at grinding the enemy to bone dust, grinding is not breaching. Also, good holding infantry will obviously buy time for ranged to tear you apart. That's something the rest of your force must address. Tying forces down with aggressive, fast-moving anvils for your chariots and monsters to bust holes into is basic Norscan operational art, and that's exactly how you should approach it. Just keep in mind the basic stuff isn't the garbage you might think it is. You need overwhelming ranged force to make fighting it easier, and knowing this, the Norscan player begins planning against that. And also, there are some matchups that Berserkers are going to absolutely own, so there is also that. Take care and have fun bringing the Viking spirit to the inquiry, asking all the right questions. Seriously, if I'm going to use that gag, this is the place. Take care.